You're now listening to the Adiel Gorel Show. Each episode, I'll bring you the latest news from my discussions with top health and wellness experts so that you can bring yourself into better health. Today, on the Adiel Gorel Show.
Connecting this piece to the vision of my future self, where my goals, my visions, where I want to go, and then bringing it into the space, which means if you look around in your space, does the space reflect who you want to be as your future self?
Hi everybody, it's a joy to be here with you today, and it's very exciting. We have Danijela Saponjic with us, and Danijela, if I butchered your name, I apologize right off the bat. Danijela she has deep expertise in Feng Shui, which is really a very fascinating field, which I've been very interested in for many decades. So it's the art and science of environmental, as you can say, environmental energetics. She's an esteemed Feng Shui and space healing master with over 20 years experience. And she's the founder and CEO of Unfolding Space and the Space Healing Method. In her School of Spiritual Design, she teaches aspiring practitioners to tap into their intuitive abilities and create balanced spaces. Danijela, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Adiel.
So why don't we, many people know what Feng Shui is, and yet, surprisingly, a lot of people don't. So why don't we start with the very beginning? Maybe you can tell us what Feng Shui is and why it's important to us to know about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very interesting question. So with, Feng Shui has many different ways how to put it, how to explain it. I love just to say, to keep it simple. Well, it's very old. It's like 5,000 more years old. And it's basically the view how the environment outside is developing, and then trying and seeing how to bring those principles which nature gives us to bring it into our space, into our lives. Because through the culture of building, which has changed a lot, especially now as the population grew also through many decades, we have lost touch of how to build it in accordance to nature. So that's the reason why I think that Feng Shui is being even more important as we move on in our human development. And it's basically the science of moving qi through space.
Moving qi through space. Yeah, I totally get it. We've talked a lot about the qi and energies on this program, so it really dives in very well. But let's go one step deeper, just a little step. What are some specific advantages of Feng Shui, and how does it differ from how people usually think about their environment?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me start with a really short story. I've been to so many so beautiful places on such beautiful locations that I went there, met my clients, and then I would think, why did they call me? The space is just beautiful, right? And they would talk to me and say, Danijela, people think we are crazy because we have this beautiful space where we can live, and still something is not right. We just don't feel at home, or it seems like we cannot really connect. We cannot dig our roots into this place. Something is missing, or something which is not so logical in our minds. And this is where Feng Shui comes in. This is where it's not about creating just beautiful places. It's about creating places which nurture people, because space can also drain our energy. And this is the reason why the Feng Shui piece is coming in to connect space and the people who are living there. So there are like a union. It's not the space is here and humans are here and we're just like living there. No, the space is the environment which protects us, which gives us the space to unfold our visions, our families, our businesses. And so the moment we connected it, it's not, we are not disconnected. There is a certain power which comes into our lives when we bring Feng Shui into the space.
So I'm going to go into something that's, to me at least, it's very obvious, and maybe we'll use it as a real example. Let's say there's a room, and in the room there's a desk and a chair, and I want to sit at that chair and work at my desk. To me at least, it's very, very, very obvious that if the chair makes me sit with my back to the door of the room, I feel vulnerable. I don't feel at ease. I don't know who is going to get into the room. Whereas if I sit facing the door with my back against the wall, I feel like I have control of the environment in a sense. I can see if somebody comes in. And I think a lot of people talk about when they go to a restaurant, they feel more secure if they sit with their back against the wall and they can see what is unfolding in the restaurant rather than with their back to the restaurant. I know that's a very trivial example, but can you talk about that?
Oh yeah, it's, you know, the thing is with Feng Shui, it gets very complicated. But the most important school, the landscape Feng Shui, is really connecting to what you were just referring to, what you were talking about, because it's about our subconscious. How can we create space where our subconscious can relax? Just what you explained. If I am facing, like if my back is facing the door, I will be thinking constantly, like subconsciously, somebody could come from the back and like from behind and kill me, right? Because this is the how do you call it? Like when we were living in caves, you always watched your back, right? And this is just so deep. And this is the first really and most important element in Feng Shui to create a space according to our subconscious need for security.
So, you know, it's interesting that you use an expression in the English language which exists, and it says, watch your back. Mm-hmm. It's actually a description of what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, some people, when they garden, seem to have an innate ability to have plants respond to them and grow well. And we use the expression, these people have a green thumb. Whereas some other people say, I don't know what it is, but everything I try when I garden doesn't work. Do I have a black thumb? To use an analogy to that, some people are naturally neat and tidy. Actually, you come from a culture that prizes being neat and tidy. I mean, I'm not saying all German people are neat and tidy, but I'm sure if we took the percentages, we will find that, because it's in the culture. Actually, I remember I was hitchhiking in Germany as a young man, and I was hitchhiking, on the Autobahn, and of course, riding at enormous speeds. And then they dropped me off at a gas station to wait for my next ride. And behind the gas station was a junkyard. So, anybody in the US or in other countries, when I say junkyard, we have a picture in our head of what that looks like. And it's not a pretty look. That junkyard in Germany was ordered better than a pharmacy in the US. It's unbelievable. So, you come from a culture where it's more, but what about this group of people that exist in the world, including in Germany, who are simply naturally messy? Not like Lionel, like we are. So, our environment will keep being a little messy, and from time to time people wake up, oh no, I gotta tidy up the room, I gotta do this. Or some people, if they can afford it, even get help. But I mean, what is the effect on our well-being, clarity, and happiness if we live in a messy environment versus a tidy one?
Yeah, that's a simple but yet complicated question, because with Feng Shui, very often people connect it. Oh, this is good this is good for Feng Shui. This is bad, and if it's bad, then it's not good. So we get into these sections of good and bad. I believe that first we need to relearn to be kind to ourselves again, and not to judge ourselves if the space is not perfectly tidy or decluttered, how it should be in Feng Shui. So I have 4 children, and I have to say that none of them has inherited the sense of tidiness I have. So boys between 7 and 21, it's just a mess. So people ask me, like, what do you do? And the first thing I say, I never allow the mess to be reason for arguing in our family. I don't want to have this pressure. So when it's not a reason for anyone to get upset with oneself, first the kindness, and then, taking it step by step, simple, easy baby steps, because no matter how small the steps are, they are going to get you to the goal eventually, however. So, and then the great thing is when you just start moving into the direction and you start declutter your desk, or just take a drawer. My pronunciation is so okay. So you just start with little things, and then you see, oh, it feels really good to tidy up this place. So let's move to the next one, and then you gain momentum, because the reason why we always talk about decluttering and order and clarity in Feng Shui is that we need to create space for the Qi, for the life force energy, which is bringing vitality, which is bringing opportunities and wealth and health, and everything what we need for a good life is moving through Qi into our space and into our lives. So when you want to invite something new into your life, you need to create space for it. But it doesn't have to be overnight. So you grow with your task. You just expand. And then you see, oh, I decluttered this. This is, by the way, how I got to Feng Shui. I was 26. My life was completely stuck. I just finished, I studied business administration at the University of Applied Sciences in Munich. And I was so clear, I'm going to get into marketing. I worked my whole life for it, but I didn't. I couldn't find a job. And in this moment of being stuck, I remember reading an article about tidy up your home and your life will change. And I was like, yeah, of course. I work in my space and my life is going to change. Now you can sell it to somebody else. So, and then since things didn't get better, I told my husband, well, let's try this. But we didn't live in a messy home. It was just full of stuff, just like normal life. So we did through over a weekend, and 2 days later, 2 things happened which really moved the needle in my life. And this is the moment I was 26 where I was clear, okay, that's more behind it. And this is when I started to learn Feng Shui and started to practice it. So to get back to your question, it's this is a reason to create space for new things to come into your life, to bring momentum into your life. And, sometimes you work on a personal level to get to the goal. And then the moment when you add the energy of your space, you will activate just more power on your way to reach the goal you have.
Not only do I thank you for this response and understand the words you say, and I believe the meaning behind them, but once again, on an intuitive level, I feel that if I'm in a very messy room, even just one room, it somehow blocks something. So you call it name. It blocks the chi, it blocks the free expression of energy. Makes perfect sense. But there is a feeling I think we can all connect to. How do I feel being in a very cluttered environment versus being in a neat type of an environment? And that is actually, once again, for some people, it's second nature. And yet for some people, it's a constant struggle. Like you can even hire a declutterer who will work with you because you need to be there because it's your stuff. You need to make, decision. No, this hat stays, this sock goes, whatever. But so let's say you succeeded in your task, but now is your messy nature going to take over and you're going to rebuild the clutter? How do you snap out of those old habits, not just the space itself?
It's by understanding. It's really about, I worked years ago, many years ago, I had a speech. And I remember an older gentleman was standing in the back and taking notes. And after the speech, he came up to me and he said, I need your support because my place is cluttered. And he was well beyond 70. And I first thought, well, I'm not quite sure. So we went back and forward for a month and he's like, no, I really want to have you here. So when I went there, he's a former engineer, lived in Germany, he's from Switzerland. And he had paper. So it was not messy, it was not dirty, but he had paper and paper. He had like everything was filled with papers. And we worked for 5-6 years together. And really in the beginning, he took every piece of paper and I trained his muscle to make decisions. And then we trained it further. So to make decisions before you bring the piece of paper into your home, decide before you buy something. So it's a process. So it took longer with him. Somebody can, it depends just on the person, how fast you learn, but it's really an understanding of what do I really need. For example, he was collecting so many information for his children, for his grandchildren, for whoever. And it's like, your kids can collect this information with with a mouse pad, like with their phone. You don't need to collect the paper. And he's like, oh, I never thought about it. Oh, I can let this go. It's like, yeah, you can. So, and what beautiful things happened when he turned 80. He let his house be painted after 20 years or something. He started to dance and he started to ride. So he died 2 years later. And at his funeral, the children came up to me and they said, you are the reason why our father had his uplifting last years. We have, it was long ago that we saw him with so much life energy and so much pleasure, doing things for himself. So no matter how old you are, the little pieces, I hope I answer your question.
No,
yeah.
Yes, absolutely. No, I mean, clearly when there's a motivation that comes from the awareness, that can change behaviors and old patterns. I mean, you talked about your children. By the way, I have a 21-year-old too, and a 19-year-old. I don't know if that matches one of yours, but and they're both very messy. And I think many teenagers are, and then somehow some of them grow into not being whatever. But that's important to know. That, I mean, we talked before on this show about Qigong. Well, Qigong, it's in the name. The name, it has Qi, in the name. So we do these movements to let the Qi of the universe flow through us. Obviously, it has to do with the space as well. So, I mean, one of the things you talk about is how to create a space that reflects your future self with Feng Shui. Can you talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, I love this. I love it because I have been working with the future self concept for myself. And then I was, thinking about in Feng Shui, we have this expression, what you see is what you get. So connecting this piece to the vision of my future self, where my goals, my vision, where I want to go, and then bringing it into the space, which means if you look around in your space, does the space reflect who you want to be as your future self? So why not in the future self concept? I remember they when I was in this group, they said, oh, wear something which is connecting you to your future self, how it's going to feel. So, but why not create an office which reflects where I am going to be when I have reached my goals? So what is the pen I'm writing? What are the paintings on my wall? what am I surrounding myself with? So we can create our future in the environment. It's like a huge vision board, but you don't need to have all these pictures glued to a wall. It's just your space. And the good thing is that when you enter the space, you are in the moment, in the energy of your future self. You don't even have to think about it anymore.
That is such a great analogy. You are living inside a vision board and you don't have to do anything. That is a beautiful thing. I remember also in my Silicon Valley days, one day I was speaking to a group of managers and engineers, and somehow the conversation went into cars. What car do you buy? And somebody made an offhand comment, a little comment. He said, well, the S500, which is a, Mercedes S500, is a CEO car. And that little saying from decades ago popped into my head now, because even in the car, you're basically reflecting a future self that you'd like to have.
Is that? Yeah.
So, you talk about how Feng Shui can give people advantages, not just in life, but in business. Can you share a little more about that?
Oh, absolutely. Feng Shui in business is very strategic. That's the reason also why so many business people are using it. So it makes a difference where a CEO is sitting. I remember doing a consultation once for a company where the owner, he said, well, I think we could grow more, but somehow I'm disconnected with my team and with my company. And they were in the construction work business. And when I came, his office was placed on in the right position, but he was not, his desk was turned around so he can watch out of the window to have a beautiful view. But with his back, he turned his back to his team, right? So I turned him around, and it was so interesting. I'm going to be really, really honest, because he did everything what I told him. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, he called me. He's like, what did you do? Nothing is working in my business. So I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? So I went back and was like, okay, what is going on? He said, well, there is one person quitting. And I said, didn't you say that it was a lady that she wanted to go, you wanted her to leave? And he said, yeah, and now she quit. Yeah, so you got what you wanted. Yeah, okay, good. So let's move on. So what we figured out is, after he turned around to face his company, to see what is going on, he saw many things which were not working. So he started to work through those things, like declutter to declutter on this level. And after that, he got the biggest projects ever. So we did, I don't know how many projects, because we're like, I'm not going to do anything without your consult, because it made such a big difference. And I really make air quotes, only turned his his desk around.
That is absolutely fascinating. And again, he was looking outside to see the beautiful view and turning his back on his team. Again, there's an expression. Once he looked at his team, that goes back to the example we used in the beginning. You sit in a room and you look outside and your back is to the door. That's very fascinating. So, let me kind of jump ahead and ask you the following question. Obviously, I can feel your passion and I can sense your experience and knowledge. And like many of our viewers and listeners, I get this, I wish I could use her services. You are located in Germany. It sounds like Feng Shui would be more of a hands-on, visit the space and look at it. Is there any possibility that somebody can actually use your services from afar?
I mean, if you would have asked me this a few years ago, I would say, no, I'm very sorry. But we had this crazy time between 2022, where I really, when everything happened, what happened, I remember I was supposed to fly to the US to work with my clients there on March 16th. And on March 14, we got locked down. And like everything was canceled, of course. And I was sitting in the trampoline of my kids and I was like, okay, my business is done. That's it. So I'm going to think tomorrow about what I'm going to do, but who is going to book Feng Shui consultation, especially when I can't visit the people? I had my certifications running. They were all in person. And then people started to call me up. Danijela, okay, you cannot come, but we need to do something. We cannot sit here and wait. So I was forced to think out of the box. And what happened then, I realized that energy is just energy. So if I am able to connect with the energy of the space, I don't necessarily need to be in the space. If I can talk to the people, if I get the pictures, I mean, we have the technology. I mean, it's developed so greatly, which we can use so that now I can tell you, yes, remote Feng Shui consultations, even healings are absolutely possible.
Well, I mean, now that I think about it, I'm sitting here in California and interviewing you in Germany using one of those video apps. One of the most well-known one is Zoom, but there are many others. And whether you want to or not, you can see my space a little bit. You can see what goes on behind me. And so I can see that we can have a discussion. You say, oh, you know what, that plant is blocking XYZ. So I can see. So what you're saying is you can work with people using Zoom, for example, or such platforms.
Yeah. We have developed a process so that I get all the information I need. And then I can definitely work this way. Yeah.
So that's very good to know. Since we are already here, and this is usually a question I would ask you later, but we are here. So can you tell us how people can get in touch with you? Maybe a website, an email, whatever it is that would make people be able to reach you.
Yeah, of course. So since information in the internet is in many different places, I have created a very simple welcome page for all the listeners. And it's unfolding-space.com and then /en and /ad for your show. And this is where I gathered information about myself, how you can connect. And I have also recorded videos for an office and as well for a private space, how I approach consultations. So you can just watch the videos and see how I work and maybe learn and then also apply it for yourself. And then there's also the possibility to book a consultation.
So the website is unfolding space.com/en for English. All right. That's very useful. Very much good. It's good to know that because your passion really flies out of the screen. And if you want to use a Feng Shui, expert or a Qi flow expert, you would want to use a person not only with a lot of experience, but with a lot of enthusiasm and passion for the field. Stay tuned for part 2 of this interview. Thank you for joining us today. I know you love what's coming next in part 2. Be sure to click the subscribe button for more videos.